Yes, greetings, and welcome to another episode of African News Review. Yes, but in a new look. Yeah, yes. I am your host, Adesoji, still Adesoji Iginla. And with me, as usual, is my sister from another mother, Ayayi Fubara Eneli Esquire. How are you doing, sister?
I am doing great. Thank you.
Yes, and he needs no further introduction. Good comrade, broadcaster, journalist, I mean, the man of the moment, Comrade Milton Allimadi.
Asante. Thank you, comrade.
Okay, and as it's become customary with us, let's check in. News where you are, beginning with the sister.
It's pretty much more of the same in terms of what we're dealing with in our community. A janitor at the high school that my youngest son attends
Mm.
was apprehended by ICE.
Mm.
So this is coming home in a very close way. She'd been back and forth, in and out of the country over a number of years, but she had, I think, served in this role as a janitor for at least over a decade.
Okay.
She had other shorter stints, but this time around, over a decade. I
Mm.
know people who know her, who speak highly of her. Yes, according to the law, was she here illegally? Yes, based on the law. Had
Mm.
she committed, what was she a threat to society? Was she committing any other crime in that sense? Did she falsify documents in order to get the job? Is she paying taxes on that job but not getting any benefits from it? Yes.
Mm.
So these things are nuanced, but anyway, ICE has come to my community.
Oh God, comrade.
Yeah, okay. So on that same note, the mayor of Chicago, of course, Brandon is fighting back. Not only the mayor, but obviously because,
The
uh,
governor too.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly, because President Trump had said he was going to arrest both of them, the governor
Mm. Mm.
and the mayor. So now, and I'm not saying the mayor is the one who's giving these instructions, but
Okay.
ICE vehicles are being towed. Uh,
Yes.
right? People are coming out to actually protest. People are coming to, there's a video that was going around
Mm.
where two ICE personnel were trying to, they wrestled this guy down and he kept resisting, getting up and down. And a crowd started assembling, and at some point they abandoned that.
Mhm.
Mm.
Okay, so, sister's right. Uh,
Mm.
if you go strictly by the law, transgressions were committed.
Mm.
But the fact is, we have millions of undocumented uh, people in this country,
Mm.
and it's impossible to, arrest. So, what is the purpose of this? Actually, are you going to arrest millions of people and deport them? That's not possible. So,
Mhm.
why don't you come out with a realistic solution, which, of course, is an amnesty?
Mm.
And in return for amnesty and regularization and normalization of your status, you have this window, you give a time frame, let it be done in a very civilized manner. You cannot subject people to this type of terrorism, where a person leaves their home in the morning, leaves their family behind. They don't know if they're going to see their family again. And
Mm.
the family does not know if they're going to see this member of the family who's leaving the home in order to earn a living, right? Not going to commit a crime, right? Going
To work.
to a job, even
Mm.
though, strictly speaking, they may not be legally entitled to that job. But
Mm.
it didn't happen just yesterday. It happened over a long period of time. So it has to be addressed historically, right?
Mm.
So let's see what happened in Chicago. Chicago, I think it's sending a message that uh, you can't just allow the state to put its heel on top of people like that.
Mm.
And then, of course, the second story is Trump did not get the Nobel Prize.
As we
But unfortunately, the person that got the Nobel is a right-wing fascist, Mercado, the Venezuelan, who is promoting violent regime change. And her ally is Marco Rubio. But there are some interesting aspects of this. In fact, it could cost Rubio his job. I would not be surprised. Because Rubio signed on to a campaign last year in August, campaigning for Mercado to be given the Nobel. Of course, at that time, he was a senator. He had no idea that he was going to end up being Secretary of State. So Rubio and several other members of Congress, senators and representatives, signed on to that memo, that campaign, right? And now she has the Nobel. Yeah. And Trump still wants it, of course, because he said, she called me and she said, you deserve it. And, she was kind. If I'd asked for it, I'm sure she would have given it to me. Right. But here's the other interesting development. Rubio is determined to overthrow the government of Maduro in Venezuela. Okay. So, he's the one pushing those missile strikes on these boats, right? Yeah. And he's also trying to build a regional coalition of maybe the willing, Around, but, what's her name? Laura Luma, this right-wing, ideologue. She has much more influence over Trump than Rubio. She's the one who was instrumental in getting Waltz, the national security advisor, fired from that job. And now he's the ambassador to the UN, which of course is a step down. She tweeted that Trump is a man of peace. Trump is not interested in going to war in Venezuela. And this Mercado, the one who just won the Nobel, she referred to her, Luma referred to her as a right-wing ideologue who wants violent regime change in Venezuela. So this is not good for Rubio, I'm telling you. So let me leave it there.
Well, the same Luma who just tweeted that she is in opposition to Trump and she might not vote in 2026. These guys are playing some games here. But to the first story that you raised, I think it's important for us to note that if the idea is to get rid of the quote unquote criminals who are creating issues in the country, of course, I should have started at the White House because there's a 34-time felon that is residing there.
Yeah,
that is where they should have started. But since they haven't started there, the question is, all the videos that we're seeing, how many of them show ICE arresting any gangbangers, any drug dealers, any major? No, we actually see a mother pulled out of her car while she's waiting in the school line to pick up her children. We see people working regular jobs who are being accosted. We see them rappelling down from helicopters in the middle of the night and handcuffing, separating parents and children and handcuffing them naked even, and destroying property. Where have we seen them actually make the country safer in any way? Because if it was really about getting rid of the criminals, I think that they should start in their midst, in their group of donors, because every other day we're getting reports of another one arrested for pedophilia or for child pornography and so on and so forth. They should start there.
Right. Okay. And on that point, in Chicago, of course, I'm sure you read about the ICE agents rappelling, coming down from helicopters and arresting U.S. citizens.
Yes.
African-American U.S. citizens being arrested, to the extent that there was a quote in one of the op-ed pieces that, one guy was shouting at ICE, say, wait a minute, I thought you were supposed to be strangling Mexicans, not us, which of course is very unfortunate. As the columnist says, it goes to that issue of the divide and rule, which is the part of this entire agenda. And then, of course, you have people who are coming to try to regularize their status at the immigration offices in courts, and they step out, and the ICE agents are there throwing them to the ground.
Exactly. People who have followed the rules. You have dreamers who are being kicked out. who came here and were born as babies or came here as children and had no, they didn't control the fact that they were brought here, but this is the country they've known for their whole lives. So yeah, but this whole idea of it's happening to them and not us, people need to understand. In law, we have this thing we call the slippery slope.
Yep.
Once you've normalized doing it to this group of people, then it becomes easier to do it to the next group of people and the next group of people. And so we all need to be vigilant and we all need to be fighting back.
Yes. Speaking of, I just want to underscore one point with regards to Maria Corina Machado, the Nobel Peace Prize. In 2002, there was a TV crew in Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, sat with the then president Hugo Chavez, democratically elected, we must say. And they were interviewing how he's redistributed the wealth with regards to Venezuelans and where they have and what the plan is going forward. And then on the TV, it was announced that the coup had been announced. And
yeah, that's a famous documentary. It's the revolution will not be televised.
Yeah, will not be televised. Yes, that's it. And part of the people that signed the so-called Carmona Decree was Miss Machado. She was one of the 400 people that signed, but she's now
claiming Chavez gave them all an amnesty, and she forgets that.
Yes. So, that's who Nobel wants us to think is fighting for democracy. Again, the imperialists will do what imperialists do, fund their attempt at undermining the people's will. So I just thought I mentioned that. Okay, so speaking of,
I think we previously mentioned who Nobel is himself, Alfred Nobel.
Absolutely, the bomb maker.
It was created because he needed to, in their words, whitewash his legacy because he was an agent of war and chaos.
So maybe you should actually.
But having said that, I'm still elated that the campaign of Trump did not work. I'm petty like that.
Hold your thoughts. Hold your thoughts. Hold your thoughts. There's always next year, so hold your thoughts.
You mean after they build the high rises in Gaza, we're gonna now nominate?
Oh no. I mean, I think that's okay. I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, I think Netanyahu cannot call this a victory because what Netanyahu promised would happen has not materialized. He said he would annex the West Bank. He would completely annihilate Hamas, and he would deport the people of Gaza out of that location. And they even started talking about how they're going to build this into a tourist resort, right? That is not going to happen. So he cannot go around touting this as a victory. In fact, I think if the other part materializes where you have Egyptian troops on the ground and Turkish troops on the ground, then at that point I can say, okay, perhaps we are on a point of no return. That's the part I'm waiting about. Ceasefire is good, but having Egyptian and Turkish troops, particularly Turkey is very much opposed to Netanyahu. So if Turkish soldiers actually get on the ground, then I'm confident within the next 2 years, we might see a Palestinian state.
Okay. So speaking of, we've been speaking about the proponents of American First. Gives me no joy, but to go to our first story, which is from Deutsche Welle, the German broadcaster, and essentially they are of the opinion that Operation Dudula, which is which says South Africa Operation Dudula hunts down illegal immigrants. The lead reads, the South African anti-immigration movement, Operation Dudula, has opened a new front with a crackdown on foreigners experts believe that socioeconomic disparities and ensuing problems fuel the group popularity. Your initial thought of what this means for Africans within the space.
Sister, you want to go or should I?
Yeah. Who wants to go first? I mean,
All right. So this is very un-African for many reasons. Number one, without the involvement of other African countries, apartheid would have lasted much, much longer.
Okay.
Okay. So people say the defeat of South Africa's army in Angola was very decisive because the Europeans realized for the first time that, wait a minute, we can actually be defeated by a non-European army, by Cuba's intervention. But why did Cuba intervene? It was because of an African country, Angola.
Yeah.
How can you forget that?
Yeah.
You know, obviously, they're hitting at the weakest target, you see, which are the immigrants. They're afraid of the true target, which is the post-apartheid structure, which still exists in South Africa. You know, it is not because of the immigrants that unemployment is almost 40% for the African population.
Yeah.
What do they have to do with that? They're just coming there to get the crumbs, right?
Yeah.
You know, so it's but you can understand how something like this can work. It's scapegoating, just like in the United States. They're scapegoating immigrants, and it elevated a candidate to be elected president of the United States. So that's what they're trying to do in South Africa as well. But it means they're just going to prolong something they really need to be addressing. Why is it that more than 3 decades after apartheid, the 8% European population still owns 72% of the land, still control like 90% of the economy? And the most shamefully, I was reading somewhere that it took a lot of agitation by civic organizations in order for President Ramaphosa to condemn this movement. Just think about it. So even he finds it convenient to have these, I don't call them migrants. These are Africans on African soil, you see? Because now you're legitimizing everything that you allegedly fought against. Those boundaries, were they drawn by Africans? What's the major difference between a Xhosa and a Zulu and a Yoruba or Igbo? Tell me about that. So what that they travel further to come from Nigeria to South Africa? They're still on African soil. And that's a foreigner. And the 8% that controls the economy, those are not foreigners. There's no logical argument there, you know?
Sister?
So, you know, I remember during my college days, which were decades ago, unlike Comrade, you know, I have not gone back to get the 10th degree because you have what, 5 PhDs now. But I remember us having this sentiment of when this generation dies out, the younger generations, we see things differently. No more racism, no more, you know, the world to be a better place. And what we were not paying attention to is the way that the educational system and the media and all the other structures that back it up, how they have continued to seed these narratives that keep showing up generation after generation.
Correct.
And so, first of all, when I read that article, it just made me really sad, because, like Conrad pointed out, who drew these lines? Are we not one and the same ultimately? And how is it? What it also made me think of is how protesters are going to Kamala Harris's her book signings, her book tour. They're going and protesting there about Palestine. But I don't see them protesting the person who is in the presidency. So when Comrade said they go for who they consider weakest or who's most vulnerable, your issue is not with the white people that own your whole country. Your issue is with the African brothers and sisters who make up what? Less than 1%, and in terms of whatever they might be getting from the system that they are serving and pouring into is under 6.5%. And so you leave the person or the people you should actually be fighting to fight against one another, because these people are easier to oppress. And as you pointed out, the president also looking at this as, hey, yeah, let's keep this chaos going so that people don't ask or demand of the government the changes that should be occurring so that everybody can live and thrive in that society. We'll keep them fighting each other while the rich keep raking in money and the white folk keep all their resources, which is exactly what we see in the United States. Yeah. You're upset that you think an immigrant is getting emergency health care, if that's since that's the story. But you don't have a problem with this country through COVID and beyond shoveling billions into the pockets of a handful of people. Yeah. And you think your enemy is this person here barely struggling to live versus the people, the oligarchs over here. So it's sad to see. I hope that we can continue to educate one another so that we understand that we really as Africans only win as one people.
Absolutely.
Divided, we will continue to be decimated. And these young people, hopefully there's some elders who can tell them, Namibia provided support to South Africans. So many other countries around it, like you pointed out, without the rest of Africa, without Africans in the diaspora, Nelson Mandela would probably have died in jail and apartheid might still be going on. So for you to turn around now and not remember even that recent history, that really sad.
It's tragic. And it's so un-African that they blocked, I think she was from Malawi, and her baby from entering a hospital.
Yes.
And that baby ended up dying. So I like the fact that the EFF, Economic Freedom Fighters, filed a criminal lawsuit against this organization, and understand the case is actually ongoing. You know,
as they should.
So, quick question before we move on. As you both are now, in the media sphere, what would you say is the media's framing of this? If you notice in that article, the historical setup was not talked about.
No, you're right. I agree. Okay, so since this program is designed to critique that,
yes,
you hit it spot on. All of that was left out. You didn't hear anything about the fact that the unemployment disparity. European South African unemployment is at 8%. Think about that. 8%. Right? So unemployment of Africans is 5 times larger than that. And that, of course, is not brought up. The control of the economy, the control of the stock exchange, the control of the mining companies. None of that is brought up. There's no context. So you just get the impression that, yes, there might be legitimacy to this issue.
Yes.
Africa, exactly. Black on black crime. Africa, even Africans are tired of other Africans. So thank you for posing that question.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just want to add this. Obviously, this is why we have this program. There was a thing called the frontline states. The frontline states were essentially the states that were surrounding South Africa, because South Africa did something. It said in order to ensure the perpetuation of the apartheid regime, it had to make sure all the other countries that were black were unstable, to create a bulwark that look at us, we control this, and look at them, they cannot control whatever it is they're in charge of. Nigeria joined that group. And there was a key speech that was given on the floor of the OAU in Kampala, given by General Murtala Mohammed, where he pledged Nigeria's entire riches to defeating apartheid. A couple of months later, he delivered the speech January 12th, and 1976, February 13, he was gone down. Some people will point out to the fact that it was the British had a hand in it. The British deny, obviously. But I just say that this. there are lots of people who have Samora Michel. Lots of
Kaunda,
leaders have given.
Nyerere, all those guys.
They
But the
all
fact that
gave.
you brought up that,
Yeah,
I pose a
yeah.
question. The
Go on.
African determination, dedication to defeating apartheid. Why can we have that type of energy and determination to create African unity, number one? Number two, to industrialize Africa? Why? You know?
I think again, because of our educational indoctrination and also just the machinations of these Western powers. I'm not going to say we obviously, once we make a decision that we're going to overcome them, we will. But even when you watch that documentary on Soundtrack of a Coup d'etat, and you understand how, and of course they're not even exposing all that they did, but you understand how insidious these people are. So you're fighting the UN, you're fighting the CIA, you're fighting M60. I mean, it's like all these different groups, and in the meantime, they are seeding confusion. So it's not just our willpower, it's like you're trying to build, and at the same time you're having to expend all of this energy to fight off all of these people coming from and then of course your own people. So we have our work cut out for us, and we can definitely do it, but we cannot underestimate how desperate these colonial powers are. And the lengths that they will go to, which we've seen through the assassinations of our people, the lengths that they will go to maintain power over us.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to underscore a point with regards to the quote unquote the synergy between the American settler colonial project and South Africa. Gerald Horne wrote a book a couple of years ago titled "White Supremacy Confronted." It's quite a piece, but listen, it ties everything together from the independence movement to how Africa's role was undermined in the UN, which is what you were speaking to with regards to Soundtrack of a Coup d'etat. Also, how the American economic system underpinned the South African movement. But the moment people started getting out in the street, the boycotts, the sanctions, eventually had to cave in. And so it will be remiss of us if we don't revisit that history and understand what is still at play. Because after all, the only reason why apartheid fell was because of economics. And it became no longer tenable to, support a dying system. So any final thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, on Gerald Horne, I want to give kudos to this great legendary historian professor. He had me once on his radio show. He interviewed me when my book first came out. But then there was something also funny, like a couple of months ago, I was interviewed on a podcast called I Never Knew TV. And it got good traffic, like maybe about 60K, and many good comments on it. And somebody posted, "Oh, this brother is deep," and I responded, "Thank you." And then the next week, I went and I heard Professor Gerald Horne speak, and I told him, I said, after he finished, I said, "You know what?" I told him about what happened, and I said, "I'm going to go back to the podcast and I'm going to post and say I'm not there yet."
Yes.
The brother is really deep, and he combines global history in such a remarkable way. In one lecture, I learned about 2 semesters worth of classes. So thanks for bringing his name up. I strongly recommend all of his books.
I mean, with regards to this particular subject, White Supremacy Confronted is just captures everything, and because it's written through an African sort of the need that this ties everything together. Sister?
No additional comments on this particular one.
Okay. And the next one I should warn you is quite, it's a bit troublesome in the sense that what we'll do is go to the BBC. And the BBC says Kenya. And it reads, so it reads, Kenyans prove, wait a second, Kenya's prove paternity case against UK soldiers. It says 7 people from Kenya have won a case at the family court in London to prove they were fathered by British men working at an army base in their country. Commercially available DNA bases were databases were used to identify otherwise unknown fathers. 6 had served at British Army training units in Kenya, Batuk, and 1 worked as a contractor. It's the first time paternity has been proven this way in a UK court. The decision opened the door for offsprings to apply for British citizenship, as if that's a prize. But allow you to give us your take. Sister,
You want to go, sister?
as a mother.
When I saw this article, I was like, why did Adesoji pull this article? Listen, every child deserves to know where they come from, who their people are, on a very basic, fundamental level.
Correct.
Having grown up in Nigeria, I have seen how cruel, and in other places in the world too, but children can be brutally honest and very cruel as well. And when you have a sense of not belonging, that can cause a lot of trauma in different ways. And then when you look different from the rest of the people as a result of your racial background, that is also traumatic. So to the extent that these young people are getting some closure, some idea of who they are, and to the extent that some of these men, like the one that they have in the article, actually is claiming the son and saying, hey, I did not know I had a son.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're building some kind of relationship. If you're to go by the article, I'm very happy for the young person. I'm very happy for the mothers of these children who probably dealt with a lot of derision over the decades. Maybe were outcasts, maybe didn't have access to the same social supports, because you get called all kinds of names. So just on a very human level, I am happy for them and for them figuring out their lineage, if you will. Having said that, I am curious as to how far we're going to go with this DNA bank. And we're going to open all of them, the Chinese, the French, all of that, because there's been a lot of stuff done by soldiers, by other contractors and other people. Some of it has been consensual. A lot of it has not been. So we're going to open up these whole DNA banks, because let's do this. And I'm coming for back child support. I'm coming for educational expenses. I'm coming for everything. And yes, we want those passports, and we want to be claimed on your wills in Europe and all your countries and everything. We're coming for all of it. But I know I'm being funny here, but I'm also being very serious. Let's open it up, because did Lord Lugard have any children in Nigeria? Cecil Rhodes has some descendants roaming around. Let's go for all of it.
No, definitely. No, that's very interesting, and that it needs to be explored. That's an avenue that must be open, and I totally endorse that, what you just suggested. So these are children of, were they of British soldiers? Were they?
That's what we've been able to establish
so
far.
So
soldiers and a contractor so far.
And a
They've
contractor.
figured out.
But they're all British.
So
they're all British.
they were not in Kenya as private citizens. So this is an issue where the state has to pay compensation and reparations. Forget the passport. The passport can come later, but what they must get first is the compensation for the abandonment. This is very similar to the case of the abandoned children in Democratic Republic of Congo, where they filed a class action. And obviously, the lawyers need to find all of the possible members of this class action and sue, just like the Congolese did against Belgium. And they won a substantial monetary amount. And of course, they also got the passport and citizenship and all of that. So that's the part that is missing and needs to be introduced in the equation. But I also love the point that Sister suggested. Why should we stop? Let's go all the way with this.
Okay, so which leads me to the next question. You've highlighted the case of the Belgians. Sister mentioned the fact that we need to expand the net. There is a large swathe of Chinese babies running around in Zimbabwe. That needs to be looked into. But then again, what about the kids that were disappeared completely? How do we look into that? Because there's also a case in Congo of Japanese kids being denied their ancestry.
Yeah. I think we covered that on this show at one point.
Yeah, we did.
Right.
So, I mean, you sort of see how this, when we pick these stories, is to tell you that the history lives. The legacy of those history. We talked about apartheid earlier. And the legacy of that apartheid is what is now playing out. We're talking in the story now, we're talking about fathers who, when the imperialists came in, they came in mostly men. There is a book, Congo, written by Kibrook, where he says most of these men came in, and even the lady we did on women and resistance, Blouin,
yeah.
the father was in his 40s.
And sleeping with a 13-year-old.
Yeah, sick.
Exactly. So we begin to see that these are some of the untreated traumas that is still besieging that continent. So my question, or my final question.
And remember really quick, because I can hear people saying, oh, then Africans do that as well. Remember that woman, that young girl that Blouin's father, quote unquote, married, was betrothed to someone else, and she was still staying with her parents because they were waiting for her to mature more.
Sure, yeah.
She was too young to, at that point, get married. But this white man comes, decides he wants her. Who knows what he gave the father or whatever. And the next thing, he immediately has sexual access to her.
Yeah. No, it's amazing how she managed to really make a tremendous life out of her life,
But then,
often it doesn't happen that way.
But then, of course,
only 1 out of 10.
If we go into that story, even though this young girl was defiled by this old white man, her crown of glory for her whole life, to go by Andre Blouin's book, was her mother's crown of glory was that she had had a baby by a white man. So when you talk about the indoctrination,
yes, of course,
and how we participate in our own oppression, it's something to behold.
Fanon writes about that in Black Skin, White Mask. When he writes about Capisha Mayotte, the Martinique novelist, who writes a so-called fiction book. But Fanon says, no, I don't believe that was fiction. That was just like her maybe fictionalizing her real life and her real desires, where the character at some point says, she was so proud when she discovered that her mother mother or grandmother was actually mixed, and then said something like, oh, so that means that if my mother had actually married a white man, I might have been white. And said, oh, it's so unlucky that never happened, So it's a very destructive inferiorization,
Yes. So my final question on the story would be, we knew how these children came to be. which is the siting of military bases in so-called countries.
Thank you. Actually, no, don't say it, because that was a point I wanted to make. So let me preempt you. My question was, why do we have British soldiers training in Kenya? Which African country do they want to invade? Do we have Kenyan soldiers training in the UK? So I left that point out. Okay, now go ahead.
Well, but we now have Qatari Air Force men who are going to be training in Idaho.
Anybody who gives a $1 billion plane, I'm going to give him a base.
$1 billion plane and a golf course, and hey.
Okay. The pretense that there's some separation between private corporations and government in the United States has been completely, just erased by this. By this man.
The Hatch Act will probably be rolling in their grave right now. It's like, why did we even put that?
A little echo there.
So, yeah, sorry. So the question I wanted to pose with regards to the siting of military bases is, there's this unequal dynamics when it comes to whether, the relationship is consensual or not. We cannot divorce of the power that, first and foremost, we are not truly liberated mentally to say, in some cases, no. We, the lady that, Wajiru, the lady that was murdered and, thrown in the septic tank, probably said no to one. And that one lost his mind and, took matters in his own hand and, disposed of her. That's one aspect of it. I cannot forget Nkrumah's book, Neocolonialism, Last Stage of Imperialism, where he says, the siting of military bases on your territory means you have no sovereignty. Mm-hmm. So how can the governments protect their citizens when they don't have this sovereignty? Because the siting of those bases undermines the very idea of them proper flag.
I think a better question would be for the Gen Z in Kenya who protested when the government tried to increase taxes so they could pay the IMF and World Bank. Why are you not targeting your protests against this? Why are you allowing your government to sell its sovereignty by basing British soldiers in your country? That should be an obvious target of protest, And if they start doing it, don't come and blame me. But I think it's legitimate protest.
Okay, sister?
I would say, to the point that Comrade is making, there's almost an exhaustion that comes when you have so many fronts to fight on simultaneously. And so for our Gen Zers, my generation screwed up a whole lot. We didn't do what we were supposed to do. And then now we're like the youth. I was having this conversation with some family members of mine who are fairly well-to-do. And this was regarding the young people who had been arrested during the SARS protests in Nigeria, and they were finally being released. And I said, but what role did you all play? Did you go and make sure they were eating every day? Did you put money together to hire attorneys for them? So these young people are being asked to literally put their bodies on the front line. But whenever there are any concessions that are made, it's those who are already in place that benefit the most from it.
True.
And we're still not creating opportunities for our young people. So on the one hand, I agree with you in terms of Gen Z and where they should direct their protests. On the other hand, as a mother of people who are Gen Z, I'm like, whose children do you want to go and sacrifice while you're sitting comfortably in your house? And after, 200 or however many of them are killed, the few concessions that are made come back to those of you who are sitting safely. So it's a duality. And certainly as a parent, I want my children to fight. I'm fighting, but I would rather put my body on the line that they live and have a future than to ask just our young people to do all this work. Because it's my generation that's screwing this up. My generation and some older, because B and the rest of them are my father's generation. But then you get my point. Yeah.
Yeah. But sadly, I don't think we're going to do that,
No,
unfortunately.
we're not.
I think the young people should, they should take power. They should take power.
They should, because ultimately
Yeah.
they're
They
going to
should take
inherit
power and
whatever
they
it
should
is.
run the country.
They
After
should.
all, it was the youth that took power in the 1960s.
True.
People like Nyerere, they were in the 30s. Obote in his 30s.
And then they forgot.
Nkrumah was considered a senior citizen because he was in his 40s.
Yeah.
But many of them were in their 30s. So they should go back and do what that generation did. The big mistake was because after they got there, they just sat on power for decades and decades and decades,
And did not create a pipeline. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of still on the theme of colonialism, now we're talking about internal colonialism, which brings me to the Comrades Pharaoh's famous, lovely magazine, The Economist. Morocco is practicing a strange sort of colonialism. It is enriching Western Sahara to the Sahrawis to be the Sahrawi Republic in an effort to keep it under control. And, people are surfing. Dahila is Africa's strangest boomtown. To many kite surfers who visit the place, a combination of peaceful waters and brisk onshore winds makes it simply a great place to surf. But to the United Nations, it is occupied and contested territory. The city lies in the south of Western Sahara, a region of the size of Britain. Morocco, which occupies over 2/3 of the land, claims ownership of the territory. The Polisario Front, a resistance group backed by Algeria, Morocco's long-standing rival, which represents the territory's indigenous population, accuses Morocco of occupation. And then it goes into what else? So essentially, that's the map. That's that's the Sahrawi Republic, and you can see Morocco getting its claws into it, and it's basically just divided it up and taking that large chunk facing the waterfront, and that's portion there is what remains of the unoccupied space. So that's it. What do you make of this internal colonialism?
All right. So this is a spin job, obviously, by The Economist. First of all, it says, it's factually, this is an occupied territory. So they're fighting for their self-determination and independence. It starts off by telling us that the UN has acknowledged that. Not only just acknowledge, the UN, and obviously in a story like this, you cannot leave out this history. The UN was sent there to conduct a referendum in 1975, I believe, to allow people to vote, and they would have voted for independence. But Morocco blocked that. And since 1975, has been sending people from Morocco proper to change the makeup of the population, the demographics. You see, that's very important. How can you leave that out in a story like this? And then it goes on to say, Algeria accuses Morocco of occupation. Accuses, it's a fact, number one. Then number two, the UN has established that. So why are you saying Algeria accuses? It's like saying, it's like saying the ANC used to accuse South Africa of occupying Namibia. Does that make any sense? No. And then it ends by saying that so long as Morocco is creating all these good jobs and paying the Sahrawi, good, decent salaries, and they're happy, so what? So in other words, it's endorsing this occupation without explicitly saying Morocco should continue to occupy. So that was my assessment of this article.
Sister?
Okay, so go to the subtitle of that heading.
Oh gosh. Okay, 1 second. Share my screen again. And it goes share. When you say subheading?
Yeah, the
First line,
subheading.
second.
Yeah, the subheading. So no, scroll all the way to the top. Subheading.
It is enriching.
So when they say Morocco is practicing a strange sort of colonialism, they're actually making the case of we went to the heart of darkness to civilize those people.
Oh God! Oh God!
I love that.
Let's just start there. And they're enriching that, colonialism enriched Africans. Of course, they got nothing out of it. There was no exploitation. They enriched Africans. So, so yes, initially
I
just
love
seeing
that.
but once I first saw that, I was like, okay, let me drink water first, then calm down before I read the rest of this article, because it's about to be some BS, really. And like Comrade pointed out, it's this spin, and it's actually using words and advocating for a thing, like giving it a pass, if you will. And the other question I'll have is, okay, so if this is, first of all, who's surfing? Are we the ones surfing? Who is surfing? Who are the elites who are out there surfing to begin with? And we keep talking about this access to water, Gaza, beachfront property, this, I was actually in Rabat last year, 2024. But getting back to the article, so you are creating jobs, right? But it's still extracting from that region that you have occupied.
Yeah.
And where are the profits deposited?
Right.
No, because Morocco.
Actually,
so you are extracting from this. So we could be looking at a situation like Congo again, where it's like, okay, if we finally do get our independence, you still set up things in such a way that you've extracted so much from us and have created an infrastructure that is alien to us. And then even if you say you're enriching the Sahrawi, how many? Because it's usually just 5 people eating at the top, and then the rest just working menial jobs. That's what we typically see. So I hope, for the sake of all of us, that the people of Western Sahel do not buy into this notion, whether these newspapers are trying to spin this as something positive or not. Whatever they are supposedly investing in that area, I can guarantee you they're extracting even more from that area.
Okay, very good. So I'm glad you said that. That's the point I wanted to add. When you said, so-called enriching, they are actually not enriching. They're using the money that belongs to Sahrawi to build the road, to build a city, and to, quote unquote, create these jobs. Morocco gets billions of dollars out of the resources. I think they have phosphates and uranium, plus the fishing rights alone.
Yes, they talk about that. Yes,
it's worth billions of dollars. So how can you say I'm taking money from your wallet, and I say, hey, do you need a couple of dollars from your wallet, and I'm enriching you? Absolutely absurd,
Yeah.
Yes, and I mean, they for people who want to read more, there is actually an article from War on Wants. It's War of Wants. If you go on waronwants.com, and you need to search for the new colonialism. It gives you a breakdown of how British interests have resurfaced in Africa. I mean, the probably wrong choice of word, has been further enshrined in the African continent since 2000. It gives you the list of companies that are listed on the London Stock Exchange, where you see even the Western Sahara, you see British companies in there exploiting phosphates, other mining rights. They're currently prospecting for oil. And what they've done is they've gone in with the elites, like the sister was saying earlier, which is, here, you're going to be the face of our company, and we're going to do it this way. Yeah. So that's it. I'm minded to know that the comrade would want to make his, he has class to attend to.
Unfortunately.
And sister and I will carry on to our last story, which
Yes. Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
So
I think you'll do very well, solidly.
I really wanted your input on this one, sir.
Oh, no. Sister, you have that bat. You can swing that bat out of the ballpark.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you for
I have other colleagues breathing down my neck. That's why. But before I depart,
That's what happens when you're a legend, So, yeah.
your sisters and brothers, please support this podcast. The brother goes into a lot of work preparing each week. And as you know, spread also the word of mouth, not only just support it monetarily, but spread word of mouth so that we can share and have more people supporting it. Yeah. So on that note, Luther, I'll continue the good work, Ahmed. See you next week.
See you next week. Yeah, thank you.
Right.
Yeah, so that's it. We go for our final story, which is from The Guardian. And it reads, as a lawyer, this will actually be off your street. ICC convicts former Sudanese militia leader for war crimes in Darfur. So the Janjaweed commander Ali Mohammed Al-Rahman, known as Al-Kushri, found guilty over atrocities. There he is, standing trial. The International Criminal Court convicted the leader of the Janjaweed militia for playing a leading role in a campaign of atrocities committed in the Sudan's region of Darfur more than 20 years ago. What do you say?
So we really can't do, in my opinion, we can't do this article justice without tracing the history of the area we're speaking about. Correct. And the circumstances that have lent themselves to people like not just him, but the president, the ex-president, who's also
Omar al-Bashir
under indictment, yes, and all the people who follow them to commit the atrocities that I'm not going to do the legal thing and say that they allegedly committed, because we actually have proof that these things were done. So first and foremost is just understanding Sudan's history of conquest, of resistance, of reformation that spans centuries. And you can go back to the Ottoman Empire and the Anglo-Egyptian period,
1850s.
when Britain, in cahoots with Egypt, which they already kind of controlled, was controlling this whole area called Sudan. We can talk about 1821 with Muhammad Ali Pasha, who was the Ottoman governor of Egypt, invading northern Sudan and annexing northern Sudan into his region, so to speak, and making that more of an Islamic area. Correct. And at the same time, Darfur and southern Sudan were gradually being subdued through military campaigns and slave raids.
Yep.
And so you also have to look at, just even if you want to say from a racial perspective, what the Northerners look like compared to what the Southern Sudanese look like, who are more quote unquote African looking, while the Northerners now, with all of their mixing, look more Arab, right? And so we can look at the taxation on Southern Sudan, the forced labor, the economic exploitation, and the lack of infrastructure being created in Southern Sudan compared to Northern Sudan. So just like they did in Nigeria, you start to set up these regional conflicts based on how you chose to govern, right? And then you come to 1885 through 1898, and now you're looking at Muhammad Ahmad, who declared himself the Mahdist. We've heard about the Mahdist
the Mahdist,
state.
yeah.
And now the Sudanese have expelled the Ottoman Egyptian administration.
Now coming the
And
British.
they're trying to, but they're also enforcing Islamic law on everybody, including
regardless
the
of your
yes,
persuasion. Yeah,
who
yeah.
were not
Muslims.
a Muslim. And then here come the Anglo-Egyptians again, because Britain can't leave us alone. They come back in and reconquer Sudan at the Battle of Omdurman, right? And then they're in power from 1899 to 1956. And this whole time still exacerbating these divisions that they created.
And guess who participated in the wars in Sudan?
Who?
Winston Churchill.
Of course.
Using the Maxim gun, he even wrote eloquently about, quote unquote, shooting Sudanese wherein they didn't even see them eye to eye.
Yeah. And now we have drones, so
yeah, so
we don't
even
even
better.
have to do.
You don't even have to be there.
But yeah, you don't have to even be there. And so you see that this country has actually had more war than moments of peace. From 1856 to 2005, they were, well, no, so from 1955 to 1972, they had a civil war going on.
Correct.
Again, Arab Muslim North, and then the largely more African Christian South.
Yeah.
1972, supposedly there's a little bit of peace that has been reached. That lasted about 11 years. And by 1983, war had broken out again, which continued until 2005. And again, followed by, and this was because President Jafar Nimeri imposed, again, Islamic law on everybody. So for those of you in America who are quote unquote Christians or evangelicals who think your Bible, your religion should be imposed on everybody else, you are no different than any other religious extremist group. Correct. Who cannot live and let live.
Correct.
Worship you how you want to worship and let other people worship how they want to worship. But you gotta input, you like here in Texas, the Attorney General just announced that he's coming after any of the schools who have not implemented putting a copy of the 10 Commandments, mounting that in every classroom. By the way, that was a mandate given to the school districts with no money. So they're already closing schools because of the lack of funds. But then you have to identify resources to put the 10 Commandments in every single classroom across the state of Texas. And we wouldn't even ask who's making the money from when that is going to be implemented. Anyway, let's continue with Sudan. So that civil war that ended in 2005 claimed, they're saying, about 2 million lives. Then you had the Comprehensive Peace Agreement in 2005, which paved the way for South Sudan's independence in 2011. But then you have these ghosts from the past rising up, because in 2003, armed groups in Darfur rose up against the government because of the abject neglect, which is now centuries old.
Correct.
So what did Bashir's regime do? They armed Arab militias known as the Janjaweed. Janjaweed. And basically it's like, you're not dealing with human beings. Go in and massacre. Just kill off, rape, do all kinds of things.
Anything.
And that carried on with impunity until we had Bashir's fall in 2019. And so now you have his lieutenant, if you will, Kushner, or however you say his name, who immediately ran away. But then I guess fearing for his life actually turned himself into the ICC. But they're still looking for Bashir, right? Do they know where he is?
No. Bashir is in government custody. But because the government is adamant that they will not hand him over to the ICC, that remains a bone of contention. with the International Criminal Court.
But
there is a part that I think we also should add to what you said. Omar Bashir actually armed the Janjaweed because he was losing power within the army. So in order to maintain power, he was doing what Trump is now doing in the United States, undermine the institutions so that they look to the strong man as the means of solution for everything. That was what Bashir did. In this case, the fallout was the killing and the maiming, which you spoke to earlier.
So in other words, there is a fascist narcissist playbook that all of these quote unquote strong men use.
Correct.
Which is really code for I am weak and miserable and want to impose my misery on the rest of the world, who, if they choose not to stand up and buy into the illusion of my strength, will indeed be conquered. And so now we see the SAF and we see the RSF, the Rapid Support Forces, going at it. And so when I look at this article, and sorry for those of you who are like, that was a lot of history, but we need to understand what gets us to where we are, and how, unfortunately, our experience with these Europeans, with these colonizers, continues to impact it. Look at all the stories we've covered today. Whether it's the Kenyan children, whether it is, South Africans now fighting other Africans. All of these stories, you can just see how.
And even the Moroccan one.
Yes.
Only two countries have recognized Morocco's hold on Western Sahara. They're France, and guess which the other one is? The
USA. Yeah. And so we need to understand there is no making peace with these imperialists.
None.
And there is no, well, they came and civilized us. Let us keep their law system. Let's keep their nursery rhymes. Let's keep that. No, we absolutely have to uproot this whole thing and remember who we were before they came and divided us, so that we can get back to a place where we can work as one. Otherwise, all of these divisions that keep us at loggerheads are fairly recent when you think about the existence of Africa and Africans.
Yeah.
And yet we're letting the last 400 or 500 years shape our sense of who we are compared to the thousands of years that preceded it.
Yes, because we've essentially bought into a system where we didn't partake in creating such system, but we're wholly subscribed to it. We pay subscription to it. What's our subscription? We have Charles Taylor, who committed egregious offenses in Sierra Leone and Liberia, 7 time in a United Kingdom prison, under the auspices of the International Criminal Court. This guy too will go down, will probably be 7 somewhere in Belgium or France, depending on who can find space for him. And it beggars belief that didn't we have our own judicial system?
Then we have our own judicial system. And then here's my question is, when are they going to convict their own? Netanyahu is still flitting all over the world. So is Putin. So is George Bush. Matter of fact, we can add Hillary Clinton and Obama if we really wanted to. I mean, what's his name, who was vice president under George Bush? Oh, I'm looking at his face right now.
Under George Bush, that would have been...
His daughter was just on the campaign trail with Kamala.
Cheney.
All of these people, and then all of the companies that made so much money from selling all these weapons.
Yeah,
when do they get held accountable? Because ultimately, the people who have caused the most murders in the world are sitting on fancy yachts. They are the CEOs of these gun manufacturing companies, these defense companies, who don't care who they sell to as long as they're making a profit. So if we could go against the tobacco companies on behalf of people who now got lung cancer and so on and so forth, can we not go against, or should we not, because we can, but should we not, do we have the willpower to go against these people who are creating all of these weapons of mass destruction, who could have used the same technology to create better health outcomes, figure out how we can feed everybody, help the world, but instead the amount of resources that are poured into destruction, chaos. Well, should they not be tried?
Of course, they should be tried, but then I think we need to also understand that as the sands of time moves, so does the way this machine operates. Now we're talking about the tech bros. There is one particular guy I want everyone now to really actually go and start studying. There's a company called Palantir. Palantir has the details, the data of every living American, all 340 million of you, as a result of the likes of Musk and Doge running rampant through the American system. But when I say tech bros, there's one particular guy, Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel bankrolled Trump's presidency, specifically giving
and bankroll JD Vance.
JD Vance. Yeah. But why is that? Why is he particular? I want people to focus on him. There is actually an interview he did, and this guy asked him a very innocuous question that if I asked you, you probably asked me, why in the hell would I ask such a question? And the question that was put to him was, should humans survive? Do you know, for like 5 minutes, he couldn't answer the question. And when he tried to answer, he tried to qualify his answer.
Well, so he doesn't consider himself a human?
No, it's not even the fact that he didn't consider himself.
No, I'm just wondering. So if you're having to think about whether humans should survive, doesn't that include you?
Yeah, well, he clearly doesn't think he is one of you.
Oh, okay, no problem.
He's saying he has the way the question was answered was telling than what he chose not to say. And these are the people that the Team Pot dictator you guys have, the United States has sort of farmed out all sorts of responsibility to them. Which brings us back to the guy in the dock in the ICC. He is just a foot soldier. The hands that drive the likes of this guy sit, like you said, on yachts in the bay in the UAE, because the gold they extract in order to continue this war finds its way onto the streets of Dubai and onto the streets of New York. Gold. Everyone knows the price of gold now, but then we're taking our resources, exterminating our people in the coast in order to finance the lifestyles and whatever else of the people that have no use nor wish you any well-being whatsoever. It beggars belief.
Yes. There is a lot that's going on that we may not all be paying attention to. I know we need to wrap up, but it's interesting that when we look at even the platform that we are on and who owns it and how they are, the oligarchs are, the tech bros are consolidating their power. And so Dustin Carmack, who wrote a section of Project 2025, was actually then hired as a top executive over the intelligence area for Meta. And so now you see even more pronounced a crackdown on quote unquote diversity, equity, and inclusion on Facebook and everything that Meta owns. They're like literally going in there and like, okay, you post this, we're counteracting it, or we're making sure that it doesn't get any views,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And in the meantime, I'm sure collecting data on those of us who are either posting or those who are liking or making commentary, because when they're done with the people they're going after, there's going to be another list of people. And that is how authoritarian regimes work. And so I don't know that we are completely paying attention, but Project 2025 is completely embedded.
One final point on this story. I remember when Karim Khan, the ICC chief prosecutor, was talking about bringing war crime charges against Benjamin Netanyahu. And he said he received a phone call and he was told, why are you going after him? We set up this court, not for him, but for Africans. In light of that, I mean, it's a statement and a question at the same time. In light of that, what should we see as the future of the court in African affairs?
I don't think that I have any, not I don't think. I have absolutely no confidence in my oppressors ever doing anything for my benefit. I don't even know why we have that expectation. I mean, we fight on every front and we use every tool that we have, but always with the idea of if you actually end up doing the right thing, the moral thing, that would be a surprise. What my expectation is, you're going to carry on doing the legacy of your evil ancestors. And yeah, I call them evil because when you do evil stuff, you're evil. So anyway, so I have no confidence in any of these courts. I mean, you certainly not in the international court. I have no confidence as a lawyer, and I have to be careful how I say this. Who is considered an officer of the court in the United States of America. I was clear by my second day of law school. Sorry, I was a little slow, y'all. That the American judicial system is not about justice. It's about maintaining the status quo.
Correct.
It's about maintaining the property rights of a handful of people who did not look like me. Now, some Black folk think that they've made it, but you're not paying attention. And so, since the system is not really about justice per se, then we're just doing the best that we can to sometimes get enough of a ruling that gives you some space to continue to live. But it's really about making people whole, even though we use that terminology. It is not about getting to truth, which is why we have all our evidentiary rules, the civil rules of procedure, where you can say, oh, yeah, you can't say that because it's hearsay. So the court doesn't actually want to know the truth. We just want to follow these rules that then allow people to
tick.
Yeah, and to evade the truth. If it was about truth, your attorney, my attorney will sit down and will bring all the evidence together, and we will be honest, not camouflage, not try to, twist this and keep out that and so on. But we're not about truth. We're not about justice. We're about winning. And it's really about maintaining the status quo at this time. And I hope I just didn't cost myself my my license.
No, you're still allowed your,
my opinions, right?
You're still allowed your opinion.
Yeah, so I operate within the confines of the law, but I also know that I come from a tradition of lawyers who challenged what wasn't fair, and that's how we ended up with civil rights, quote unquote civil rights, or getting to the point where you had Brown v. Board of Education, is people who were saying what is in place is not right, and we'll keep pushing back. So we must continue in that tradition.
Okay.
Until we find a different way. And for Africans, there's no reason to continue in that tradition. Go back to your own traditions.
Yeah. Speaking of traditions, on Wednesday, as part of our continued conversation about the role of women in the war and resistance, we're going to be looking at another woman who came up against imperialist forces, Umbuya Nehada. It promises to be a brilliant conversation. So, yes, we're going to be looking at the life and times of Umbuya Nehanda. And so, please join us on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And sister, thank you for coming again. As usual, it's a pleasure having you, your thoughts, and your dreams for Africa.
It's an honor. It's an honor to be here and to just even be in conversation with you and Comrade Allimadi, and you're sharpening me every day, and I hope that we are doing a job of educating all of us and hopefully encouraging everyone to fight back in every way that we can.
Yeah, I mean, same here. The Yorubas will say, which is two hands wash each other in order for them to be both clean. So that said, thank you, everyone. Do remember, share, like, subscribe, download the audio version. You can keep that as your reference point. Should you need to go back to All Things Africa again? Thank you. And until Wednesday, when we shall be here together, and until next week, do continue to be curious and love all things Africa. Until then, it's good night and God bless.